All right. Hi, everyone. This is Nicole with Conscious Creators Universe, and I'm here with Cassandra of Intuitive Cassandra. And we are just here to talk to you about creating great things in your life and being a conscious creator. And so I hope you enjoy the interview. All right. Hi, Cassandra. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I feel pretty pumped that you're my first person. Okay. So I want to just start out maybe having you tell me a little bit about your business or your mission, what you're up to right now.
Awesome. So in my business right now, I primarily focus on intuitive readings and intuitive coaching. And my mission is really to support people in finding their life purpose and knowing that, like, trusting their path in life, trusting their spiritual path. So that's what I specialize in.
Very cool. Very cool. So I'm kind of curious about your history, like what brought you to this and what did you do before you came to this area of expertise?
Thanks for asking. That's such a great question because I used to have just a very mainstream life where I went to college, I worked for a transportation company, and then I worked at some law offices. I lived in South Korea, where I taught English for a while, and I really had some like normal jobs. But the reality is, even back then, I knew something was missing. I knew that there was more. I couldn't pinpoint it, and I would not have been able to say or articulate back then that I wanted to find my life purpose or that, I wanted to specialize in supporting people. But I just knew that it wasn't like life could be better, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And so through a series of events, what really led me to the healing arts was my own sickness that I was not able to solve or resolve using Western medicine. And that sort of pushed me into looking deeper, looking at energy, looking at things like that. And so I got into Reiki, and that was sort of the beginning of the unfolding. And from there, I became, I would just say I became more aware of what I really wanted, and that's what started things moving in this direction.
That's awesome. So you have a personal story, and it's not like you grew up wanting to be an intuitive coach, because that wasn't necessarily a thing that you would have even heard of.
Right.
It just kind of became created in your story.
Right.
That's awesome. And so do you feel like you've been able to see the progress on the personal issue that originally brought you onto this path?
Yeah, actually, there was a point where I was not able to really function very well because I had migraines so much, and I was just kind of sick all the time with something or another. And so I can see a change in my energy level. I can see really too, like I feel the difference at a deeper level where I'm not as hard on myself. I'm kinder to myself. I'm more loving to myself. I'm more accepting of things not going my way, and all these ways that my life is just smoother now because I feel like I'm more in the flow instead of just pushing against everything.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think if we're thinking back when we originally started talking, the original thing that you wanted to work on was how diet was affecting you physically and some of these physical issues, and they haven't been brought up in a long time. So that's kind of crazy to think back to really how far you've come. So that's
Yeah.
exciting. So as you have started on this path of kind of finding your purpose, can you tell me about some of the struggles you've come across and maybe what you have done to overcome them?
Yes. So I think the biggest one is doubt. Doubt has been like doubt will kill everything. For me, it's easy to feel doubtful when you feel like you're doing something different than everyone else. I mean, not everyone is out there specializing in intuition or doing readings for people or healing and stuff. And so um, that sort of self-consciousness, that self-judgment, and I say self-judgment because I would assume that everyone was judging me when I didn't know if they were or not. And so, especially in the beginning, that was the biggest obstacle, was being afraid of what's going to happen if I put myself out there. And once I put myself out there, it was not as bad as in my head I made it out to be. And um, it's just that believing in the doubt, believing in the self-critic, that is the number one thing that will just kill. It will kill intuition, and it will kill being able to trust. Because and another thing too is sometimes when you are on your life purpose, on your path, you have to let go of things. And that was another obstacle, is knowing I need to let go of something or move on from something, or a relationship or a friendship or a group of people that, for whatever reason, these things serve you for a certain amount of time, and then eventually it's actually time to move on. For me, moving on when it's time has always been a struggle, because sometimes it can just be really hard to let go of the familiar and go into the unknown. So those are a couple of struggles. And yeah, I think that how I've overcome them is just, I don't know, just going through it, just deciding that what I want is the most important in a certain way. And for someone who is naturally empathetic, naturally supportive, naturally wants to help others, that can actually be a very difficult thing to do, is decide that what you want is important. But it's necessary in order to have the strength to be like a well-rounded intuitive healer, coach, etc., I think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm also curious, like when you find those kinds of struggles coming up that are more like internal battles and doubt or whatever, do you feel like the more you've worked on them, the quicker you recognize them and can kind of redirect towards how you would like to handle a situation?
Yeah, in general, I feel like for me, the process of just healing in general, and including, because I think of it as holistic. So like the self-doubt is all part of what needs to be healed. For me, the process started slower, and then it speeded up. And so it's sped up. So now I move through things a lot quicker than I used to. And I don't always have to focus on the problem. Sometimes I can just focus on what I do want to create and shift my energy into that. And sometimes that can supersede any doubt, if that makes sense.
Oh, awesome. So you're not working on the doubt per se, you're working on the thing you actually want the doubt to not affect, and then it kind of takes care of itself.
Exactly. Like if I'm worried about doing a seminar, I just focus on the seminar and how great it's going to be. I don't focus on the worry part. Or try not to, I guess.
Yeah. Sometimes easier said than done, but
yes.
practice. So now going over your whole, or including your whole life at least, like what events do you feel like have played the biggest role in shaping who you've become?
Wow, there's so many. So one is from when I moved to Korea. So when I was like 23 or 24, I moved to South Korea and taught English there. I feel like that really shaped things, because it was the first time, like I had gone to college, but this was the first time I really did something totally out of the box, and there was a lot of value in just trusting myself. Like, that was the first time I just trusted and jumped. And there was a lot of good experiences. There were a lot of not so good experiences. But the reality is I needed to make the jump and get all the scrapes and bruises that I got from it and just live life on faith a little bit. And so that's one thing that really shaped things. I do feel like some events when I was younger probably also really shaped who I am as well. I had a really interesting childhood, and so I lived with my mom until I was 9, and then I lived with my dad and my stepmom, and so dealing with that kind of transition definitely was something that I think shaped who I am now. I also ended up getting sober at a pretty young age. That definitely shaped who I am, because I believe that having negative experiences really gives us compassion. And so I've had some struggles with addiction and that kind of stuff. And so I actually feel that helps me to do a better job now, because I have a lot more compassion, because I know what it's like to literally like feel like you're in hell. And so I think that really is, everyone will have a different way of getting compassion, but I think it is a very necessary ingredient of really truly being like a healer in a certain way. So those are some things that shaped who I am.
That's great. So it's not positive things necessarily that shape the person you want to be. It's the challenging experiences.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's very cool. A lot of what I'm wanting to do here with Conscious Creators Universe is kind of challenge the way people can often get stuck in just feeling powerless about, the circumstances of the world or the circumstances of their life. And, and a lot of times I think people grow up being told there isn't enough money, or being told, just being told that they don't have power. And so I think it's important to recognize how those challenging experiences really actually are a huge part of the wonderfulness that we can become and share. So
absolutely.
I love that. So what do you think your role is in, contributing to the world? Like, what do you think the world needs that you have?
The first thing that comes to mind is vision, positive focus. So that can be true on an individual level, where as someone who works one-on-one with people, my number one job is to see them in their highest possibility, their highest potential. If I were to do what I do and just accept people how they are, that's not really, it's almost selling them short a little bit. So on a one-on-one level, I'm holding the highest potential and really believing that is what they're going to step into. Even on a global level, we can do this, where, I can think of the world as all the negative things that are going to happen in the future, or I can shift and focus on the future I want to see, and then take a step in that direction. And so I feel like what I have to offer the world is just sharing my perspective, sharing how I see things. I also am very much connected with energy and how we manage our own energy. And it doesn't have to be some woo-woo crazy thing. Like, I think that sometimes spiritual concepts, metaphysical concepts can be seen as out there or strange or weird. But I feel like one thing that I hope to bring is a little bit of practicality and groundedness to all of this spiritual information that's buzzing around, and make it seem like it's something anyone can do, because anyone can. You do not have to be special. You do not have to be born with visions in order to tap into or use metaphysical laws, universal laws, and energy, and really shape your own reality. So I feel like that is something I have to offer, is really teaching people and sharing with people how they can incorporate spirituality, spiritual wisdom in a really practical, everyday kind of way.
That's awesome. I love that, because some people are going to be a little nervous about, joining on this movement. And so helping them incorporate it in a way that doesn't feel like they're alienating who they already were is a good way to do it. I think that's awesome. So do you have any fun stories of like manifesting or creating something intentionally in your life? Like any actual experiences where you can tell us about it?
I do. So the first one that pops into my head is the school that I'm in now, that I'll be graduating from in the spring. And I created that school. I actually, before I even heard of it, I knew I wanted to study more, and I felt like all the things I wanted to study were so varied and random that I'd never find a school that had everything. So I just wrote down in a journal one day, and at this time I was doing a lot of meditating. I was really connected. I just wrote down all the classes I wanted to take on a list, and I just was like, ooh, this would be fun. And they were totally separate and kind of random. It wasn't like focused or structured by any means. And then I forgot about it. And I'm going to say 3 months later, I found a school that teaches all of those classes that I wanted to take. And I ended up enrolling, and now I'm a student there. That's one story. Another one is much smaller, but I want to tell it anyway, just because it's so powerful. It's so instant. And so actually, I was doing this transformational program, and so I was in this really good space. And I was thinking to myself, I really wish I had a used vase. Like, I should go to Goodwill and get a used vase for these flowers someone got me. And the next morning, I was walking to my car, which I had to park further away than normal. And on the sidewalk were a whole big box of used vases.
Awesome.
And I remember thinking to myself, I should have manifested a new vase.
Oh, man. That's awesome.
And I've had it actually work the other way around, where I instantly manifested something I didn't want. And I'll just tell this one really quick. So when I lived in South Korea, sometimes Korean men would just come up to me on the street and start talking to me. And it would be a little uncomfortable. It wasn't my favorite experience. And I remember I was walking down the street and I was thinking, guys always do that here. And boom, someone came up and did it in that same moment that I was thinking it. And I remember going, okay, I need to really watch my thoughts, because I don't want to create all these things I don't want.
Yeah, definitely. I think traffic is probably one of the worst versions of instantly manifesting what we don't want.
Right. Or you can manifest what you do. It's you can think I'm stuck in traffic, or you can think like there's an opening, so it's crazy.
Yeah. I was recently listening to this book on tape about this lady was talking about how she has this like magic of always manifesting parking places. And I was like driving around, it's the holidays right now, so I was trying to go to a movie, and I was like, I don't know, that thought popped into my head about this lady in these parking spaces. And lo and behold, a parking space was like right there. And I laughed and I told my daughter, see, I knew I was going to manifest that parking space, but I hadn't said it out loud. So she was like, oh, Mom, you're so full of it.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it can, good or bad, it can happen real quick sometimes, and
Yes.
it's pretty awesome. So, what has the biggest impact, do you think, of keeping you in the groove of like consciously creating, like of routines that you do? Like, how can you stay in your best space?
That's a good question. And I feel like the answer always changes because it depends on where I'm at. So, um, I mean, right now, one of the biggest things that is super important for me is the way I'm eating. So I'm getting to this point where if I don't eat somewhat healthy, I cannot really be my best. And I can see how it affects my emotions. And even things like getting enough quiet time, that's important. And um, I do feel like it changes in the sense that when I first started, I had to meditate more often in order to get centered and calm. And that was fine. Like I meditated every morning and every night because I needed to. And I think knowing though that it can be fluid and flexible as well is important. And I also feel like having like-minded people around is a huge, 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 huge part because um, it just, I mean, it just reaffirms that you're not alone. I mean, I'm feeling like I don't want to do holidays. And for a while, I was thinking, well, I should want to do that, and I'm being selfish. I should, I should be celebrating with the rest of the people around me, etc. And then I saw on another healer, intuitive channel, she's a channeler. I saw on her page that a lot of times we reject some of these mainstream holidays as a way to sort of recondition ourselves. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, and I just felt this sense of like I'm okay, and that actually what I would have thought is a symptom of selfishness or something wrong with me is actually an aspect of my own personal growth. So I think that being in a like-minded community can support anyone who's making changes of any kind know that they are making changes that are healthy and that there are other people experiencing that. It can just be very affirming.
Oh, yeah, good word. Yeah, it's like you got the permission you needed to do things the way that worked for you. That's awesome. So, at this current time, what would you say that you're most grateful for in your life or in the world?
Whew, whew. What am I most grateful for? I'm super grateful for just the work that I've put into myself, to developing myself, because I'm at a point where it's really starting to show. It's really starting to pay off. I'm feeling much stronger, much more grounded in the things that I believe, and so I'm really grateful that I've gotten myself to this point. I've recently started a blog, and so I'm really happy that I'm doing that and that I'm at a place where I'm that connected. I'm really grateful for the school that I'm in and just the journey that I'm on. And in the world right now, many people would say it's hard to find gratitude, but what I believe right now is that we're in a time where things are changing rapidly. And so I'm grateful for the exposure that's happening on all levels with, the internet and how interconnected we are. This is actually, I feel it's a positive phase in our growth. It doesn't necessarily feel comfortable, and there's a lot of negativity in the world right now, but what I'm grateful for is that anything that has not been seen up until now is now being seen, and we're all really seeing the truth about the world we live in. And because of that, it's going to lead to accountability. So people won't be able to get away with things that they could have hidden in the past because everything is coming to light right now. And so I'm actually grateful we're in that stage, just because I can see where it's going to get us. It's going to get us to a place where we have more transparency in our government, where we have more responsibility among individuals. And I just see us really shifting into this global community that, again, like right now we're going through some serious growing pains, but I'm grateful that we're at least going through it instead of hiding it or being in denial.
That is awesome. So brilliant. I couldn't agree more about the interconnectedness, and and the fact that while it might look like there's a lot of negativity, it's just because we're able to see everything, like you said. And so there really is also a lot of positivity too, and it just depends on what you're choosing to look for. So I just recently watched a TED Talk about raising children mostly, but something that really struck me is how a lot of kids now are being raised to think that they need to be perfect, and so they're scared to really do anything in which they might fail, and it keeps them frozen. And I know I see this a lot in myself at times, and I think none of us are alone in feeling scared to take action. So I think it's important to kind of encourage the inevitability of failure and realize that it's not a bad thing. And I'm wondering, when have you been really scared in your life to do something? And were you able to push through it? And how did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I've been most afraid of have been the best ever. So I was afraid to go to Korea, but I went, and that was an amazing experience, lots of life lessons. And I mean, even like littler things like traveling alone and just doing that, and then you can do it. I just feel like I've been through, I mean, even like doing my business, I was really afraid to do that. I was afraid to commit to the school that I'm doing because I was afraid of the commitment of, what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't make the money to make up for what I'm paying, that kind of thing. And so I feel like I've been pretty good at pushing through those things, and just trusting that I wouldn't have this strong of a desire if I wasn't supposed to do it. And I can also think of, on a smaller scale, to be honest, some of the things that I'm most afraid of are having really intimate conversations with people or telling someone how I feel. I mean, that can be the scariest thing ever, is just telling someone how I feel. And my experience is that oftentimes, if I go into it with responsible energy and not going into it to blame them for something, what results is more amazing than anything that I could have imagined. And so another thing that I tend to be afraid of is almost like inviting people into my life sometimes. Sometimes I forget that I need to ask people to support me because I'm so want to do it myself, and just I don't really think of that. And so those kind of things actually are some of the biggest fears, really, are those smaller day-to-day life things. And for me, pushing through the fear isn't about seeing that it was worth it and everything manifested in the physical world how I wanted. It's like a relationship to myself, where if I'm afraid of something and I just do it, then I regardless of the result, I don't have to be afraid. I can succeed. I can totally fail. It doesn't matter. I did it. And so there's something about just moving through the fear, being outside the comfort zone, that for me, it's really valuable. It creates a sense of adventure that is, in a way, it's nervous energy, but it's like fun, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
it's like it's fun to like tackle your fears. It can be fun. It can be scary, but it's like scary and fun.
absolutely. And nothing builds confidence like getting through things that you were scared of.
Yeah.
So do you have anything right now that you're trying to create or wanting to create that you're pretty scared about?
For me, the biggest thing that comes to mind is sort of my next steps with being more visible in terms of my business, doing more workshops, and being in front of larger groups of people. I'm pretty comfortable in smaller groups, and so now it's time for me to get outside of that comfort zone, and so that's like that next step for me, definitely.
Great, great. So increasing your impact. I love it. Well, I think that's about it. I have one more question that I'd like to end off with, and that's just, do you have any encouragement for someone who doesn't know what their role is or what their mission in life is and how they can start getting on that path?
Yeah, there are a few things someone can do who feels like they don't know what they want to do. And the answer is in whatever you love. So you can start by, you don't have to figure it out immediately. It can be a process, but you can start by focusing on what do you love to do? What do people normally call you for? Like, what do people seek you out for? Do they call you when they just need someone to listen? Do they call you when they need advice on what to do and you just tell them what to do? You know, what or do they just love it when you cook for them? You know, what do you love to do? What do people seek you out for naturally? And you can also look at what you loved as a child. It probably won't be a direct answer, but it can be, it can help you focus in the direction, right? Because like when you're a kid, you don't know all the possible things there are. So you choose something that's most related to your passion. So if you want to be a healer, you might say, I want to be a nurse. Or if you want to be a, I don't know, a public speaker, you might actually say, I want to be a singer, because that's the closest thing as a child that you know, to
Okay.
put it into a frame of reference. But it can help you because when you're little, you just do whatever you love sort of naturally.
Mhm.
Like, did you play outside all the time? Did you like music? Did you whatever you loved? So really, that's the key, is getting into what you love. And even if you don't feel like you love that thing enough to want to do it for full time, just being in the zone of focusing on what you love and doing what you love some of the time, that will actually bring to you more ideas of other things that you love to do. And just know that there's a lot of social conditioning around working 40 hours a week and letting go of what you want and making sacrifices. And so sometimes there is a need to really break through some of that conditioning before you can get that clarity on what you truly want. So that's it in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you so much, Cassandra. I appreciate this time we've spent. And if anybody's looking for some intuitive coaching on finding their purpose or even just some great inspiration, I'm going to link to Cassandra's website. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.